The history of Canadian aviation and defense is written with ink that oscillates between moments of sheer industrial brilliance and periods of missed opportunities. For the Canadian observer, particularly those who have witnessed the evolution of our national defense policy over the last 4 decades, the current geopolitical landscape presents a sense of déjà vu, yet it is charged with a new, urgent volatility. We stand at a critical crossroads regarding the future of the Royal Canadian Air Force, and perhaps more importantly, the future of Canada's own aerospace manufacturing capabilities. While the government moves forward with the acquisition of the F-35 Lightning II from American manufacturer Lockheed Martin to satisfy the Future Fighter Capability Project, FFCP, the narrative is far from over. In fact, a parallel narrative is emerging, one that suggests Canada's role in global security could be far more significant than that of a mere purchaser of foreign hardware. This alternative path is being illuminated by the expanded partnership proposal from Sweden's Saab, centering on the Gripen E fighter and the GlobalEye surveillance system. This is not simply a sales pitch. It is a strategic proposition that asks whether Canada is ready to transform from a consumer of defense technology into a global production hub, leveraging our own industrial DNA to secure not just our Arctic borders, but the front lines of democracy in Europe. To understand the magnitude of this opportunity, one must first look beyond the airframe of the Gripen E and examine the geopolitical shockwaves currently reshaping the defense industry. Saab has recently announced that it is seriously considering Canada as the primary location for a new assembly line for the Gripen fighter. This is not a minor satellite facility, but a robust manufacturing hub intended to meet a skyrocketing global demand, most notably from Ukraine. Mikael Johansson, the president and CEO of Saab, has explicitly mentioned Kyiv's profound interest in acquiring more than 100 Gripen fighters to bolster its defense against aggression. This demand effectively necessitates a doubling of the defense company's production capacity, a feat that cannot be achieved solely within Sweden's borders. Johansson's plan to expand production capacity places Canada at the center of a new transatlantic supply chain. For a Canadian audience, the implications of this are staggering. We are looking at a scenario where Canadian workers and Canadian engineers are responsible for assembling the very wings that could defend the skies of Eastern Europe. It recontextualizes the Gripen E from being a competitor to the F-35 into a strategic asset of industrial statecraft. By hosting this production, Canada would not only secure a backup supply chain for its own RCAF, but would also cement its diplomatic and military leverage within the NATO alliance by becoming a key exporter of air power. This potential expansion is built upon a foundation of trust that has been quietly laid over nearly 3 decades. Saab is not a newcomer knocking on our door. The company has been operating in Canada for nearly 30 years, embedding its technology into the very nervous system of our armed forces. Many Canadians may not realize that when our brave sailors deploy on the Halifax-class frigates of the Royal Canadian Navy, they are protected by Saab's combat management systems and fire control and surveillance radar. These systems are the core of these ships, essential for their critical role in maritime warning missions under NORAD command. The technology is already here, trusted, and proven in the harsh realities of North Atlantic patrols. Therefore, the transition to assembling the Gripen E and deepening this partnership is less of a leap of faith and more of a logical progression of an existing, successful relationship. It is a relationship that respects Canadian sovereignty and technological capability, rather than treating the country merely as a branch plant for foreign interests. The synergy between Swedish innovation and Canadian industrial might is perhaps best exemplified not by the fighters themselves, but by the watchful eyes that guide them, the GlobalEye system. In a move that should swell the chest of any Canadian aviation enthusiast, Saab's GlobalEye Airborne Early Warning and Control AEW&C solution is built around a Canadian icon, the Bombardier Global 6,000 over 6,500 aircraft. This is a platform designed and built in Canada, renowned globally for its extraordinary range, endurance, and performance at all altitudes. By selecting the Bombardier airframe as the heart of the GlobalEye system, Saab has effectively created a hybrid champion that combines the pinnacle of Swedish sensor expertise with the reliability of Canadian aerospace engineering. This partnership goes beyond mere assembly. It integrates the eyes of the fleet onto a Canadian body. With the recent announcements of expanding partnerships, Saab is looking to assemble more GlobalEye systems, potentially right here on Canadian soil. For the RCAF, which has long needed robust surveillance capabilities to monitor our vast, unguarded Arctic frontier, a fleet of GlobalEyes built on familiar Bombardier jets offers a solution that is logistically seamless and patriotically sound. It represents a made-in-Canada solution for a problem that is uniquely Canadian, the tyranny of distance in the high north. The depth of this industrial integration was further formalized during a week of high ceremony and strategic substance, the recent state visit of the King and Queen of Sweden to Canada. Amidst the diplomatic fanfare, a critical agreement was signed that will shape the future of pilot training. Saab and CAE, a Montreal-based global leader in simulation and training, announced the signing of a global cooperation agreement. This pact leverages CAE's world-class simulation technology to provide comprehensive, high-fidelity training for Saab's airborne early warning platforms, including the GlobalEye. This collaboration combines Saab's decades of expertise in multi-domain sensors and command and control with CAE's leadership in simulation-based training. Together, they will deliver mission complexities that mirror the high-threat environments of modern air warfare. For the Canadian economy, this cements CAE's position at the top of the global defense food chain, ensuring that as Saab expands its footprint worldwide, Canadian training technology travels with it. It is a symbiotic relationship where Canadian software and Swedish hardware create a complete ecosystem for aerial dominance. However, the conversation inevitably returns to the fighter jets themselves and the contentious debate surrounding the FFCP. The selection of the F-35 was a decision driven by the desire for fifth-generation stealth, yet the soaring costs of the program and the delays in delivery have kept the door of discourse ajar. While the purchase of 88 F-35 seconds is proceeding, the financial and logistical realities raise a prudent question. Is there room for a mixed fleet? Critics and procurement officials often dismiss the idea of a mixed fleet operating two different types of fighter aircraft as prohibitively expensive due to the need for separate training pipelines, infrastructure, and supply chains. They point to the era before the CF-18 Hornet, when the RCAF struggled under the weight of operating three different fighter types. Yet, this historical comparison may be flawed in the modern context. The Gripen E is designed specifically to shatter the traditional cost curve. Developed through a highly agile collaboration between the Swedish Air Force and industry, the Gripen E was engineered to break the cost spiral that plagues modern defense projects. Its defining characteristics, interoperability with NATO standards, low maintenance and sustainment costs, and a small operational footprint make it the antithesis of the heavy Hangar Queen fighters of the past. To address the skepticism regarding the Gripen's capability compared to the venerable CF-18 and the incoming F-35, it is valuable to turn to the insights of those who have actually sat in the cockpit. CDR Magazine recently reached out to Johan Linder, a veteran fighter pilot with extensive experience flying both the Gripen A, B, C, D models and the FA-18CD Hornet. His comparative analysis provides a grounded, operator-level perspective that is often missing from bureaucratic reports. Linder's discussion highlights that the Gripen E is vastly more advanced than the earlier models he flew, yet it retains the rugged DNA required for dispersed operations. This is where the Canada factor becomes critical. The Gripen E is designed to operate in climate conditions that mirror the Canadian Arctic. It is built to thrive in extreme cold, to take off and land from short, icy roads or damaged runways, and to be serviced by a small team of conscripts or technicians in the middle of a blizzard. This is a capability that the F-35, with its delicate stealth coatings and requirement for pristine airbase infrastructure, struggles to match. The question of whether Canada can afford a mixed fleet might be better phrased as, can Canada afford not to have a resilient secondary fleet? If the primary fleet of F-35 seconds is grounded due to technical issues or limited by the availability of long runways, the Gripen E offers a high-readiness alternative that can fight from anywhere. Saab's proposal includes the transfer of technology to Canada, ensuring that we possess the intellectual property and the industrial tooling to maintain these aircraft independently. This contrasts sharply with the black box nature of other foreign military sales, where the buyer is often forbidden from tinkering with the software or hardware. In a mixed fleet scenario, the F-35 could serve as the sniper on day one of a conflict, using its stealth to kick down the door, while the Gripen E, produced in Canada and armed with massive payload capacity and advanced electronic warfare suites, serves as the workhorse that sustains the fight. Furthermore, the economic argument for the Gripen E as a complementary force is bolstered by the potential export market. If Canada becomes the assembly hub for the 100-plus jets desired by Ukraine and potentially other nations, the economies of scale would drive down the unit cost significantly for the RCAF. We would not be buying a foreign product. We would be buying from a line we run, fueling our own GDP. The notion that a mixed fleet is too expensive relies on outdated models of logistics. With modern digital supply chains and the high reliability of the Gripen, which has a much higher availability rate than legacy fighters, the cost per flight hour is a fraction of its competitors. This efficiency allows for more pilot flight time, better training, and a more active presence in the Arctic, something Canada desperately needs as polar ice melts and foreign powers eye our northern resources. As we analyze the industrial landscape, it becomes clear that Saab's offer is comprehensive. It connects the naval dominance of the Halifax-class frigates, the aerial surveillance of the Bombardier-based GlobalEye, and the air superiority of the Gripen E into a unified package. This is a level of integration that few other partners can offer. The Swedish philosophy of total defense, where every asset is networked and every resource is optimized for survival, resonates deeply with the Canadian reality of defending a massive landmass with a relatively small population. The alignment between Saab's business goals to protect customers and communities from threats, regardless of origin, and Canada's peacekeeping and defensive posture is undeniable. The strategic value of the Gripen E proposal extends beyond the metal and the avionics. It touches on national resilience. By controlling the means of production for a top-tier fighter, Canada insulates itself from the whims of foreign supply chains that can be disrupted by politics or pandemics. The proposal to transfer technology means that Canadian engineers would understand the source code, the radar algorithms, and the electronic warfare libraries. This intellectual sovereignty is priceless in an era of cyber warfare and electronic jamming. It empowers the RCAF to adapt the aircraft systems to new threats overnight, rather than waiting for a foreign contractor to release a software update 6 months later. In summary of this industrial and strategic overview, the Saab Gripen E presents itself not merely as a machine, but as a catalyst for Canadian industrial renewal. The convergence of the Ukraine demand, the established 30-year footprint of Saab in Canada, the integration with Bombardier and CAE, and the operational suitability for our Arctic climate creates a compelling case. It challenges the single-track narrative of the FFCP and asks us to envision a future where Canada is a producer of security, not just a consumer. The F-35 may be the chosen path for now, but as costs rise and geopolitical demands shift, the Gripen E remains a standing offer to diversify our risk and supercharge our industry. But the story does not end with industrial benefits and cold weather performance. There is a technological revolution occurring under the skin of the Gripen E, a revolution driven by artificial intelligence that promises to redefine the very nature of air combat. As we will explore in the next section, recent flight tests have proven that the Gripen E is on the verge of leaping a generation ahead, powered by an AI pilot that learns faster than any human ever could. If the industrial argument for the Saab Gripen E rests on the solid foundation of Canadian manufacturing jobs and sovereign supply chains, the operational argument is currently being written in the clouds above Sweden with a technology that feels less like engineering and more like science fiction. While the world has been fixated on the definition of fifth-generation fighters largely characterized by stealth geometry and radar-absorbing materials, Saab has quietly leapfrogged the conversation entirely. Through a groundbreaking initiative known as Project Beyond, the Gripen E is effectively transforming into the world's first operational sixth-generation fighter by integrating advanced artificial intelligence directly into its combat systems. For the Royal Canadian Air Force, rcaf, which must patrol the second-largest airspace on the planet with a limited number of pilots, this development is not just an upgrade. It is a potential equalizer that could alter the balance of power in the high north. The revelation of this capability is recent and profound. Between May 28 and June 3, in the skies over Sweden, history was made during a series of classified flight tests funded entirely by the Swedish Defense Materiel Administration as part of their National Future Fighter Concept Program. These were not mere computer simulations run in a basement laboratory. These were live combat sorties. A Gripen E, equipped with the Centaur, artificial intelligence developed by the German defense AI company Helsing, took to the air to engage in simulated beyond visual range BVR combat. Its opponent was a Gripen D, a formidable fourth-generation fighter flown by an experienced human pilot. The objective was to test whether an algorithm could match the intuition, creativity, and tactical cunning of a human operator in the chaotic environment of air-to-air warfare. The results were nothing short of revolutionary. In the first two flights of this historic series, the Centaur AI was given control over the Gripen E's maneuvering and sensor management. It was responsible for signaling the pilot exactly when to fire weapons to ensure a kill. But it was during the third flight that the system truly flexed its muscles. The engineers implemented dynamic real-time data integration, pitching the AI-controlled Gripen E against a live adversary, a real Gripen D executing complex hostile maneuvers. The research team threw every variable they could at the system, altering initial conditions such as airspeed, separation distance, and angle of attack, and even disabling certain control channels to test the AI's resilience. The AI did not falter. It operated autonomously, tracking the target using its integrated sensors and executing precise course corrections to maintain a firing solution. For Canadian military planners, the implications of what happened next should be the primary topic of every strategic briefing in Ottawa. According to Antoine Bourdes, the vice president of AI at Helsing, the Centaur system achieved a proficiency level equivalent to a pilot with 50 years of flight experience in the span of just a few hours. This is a statistic that defies traditional training logic. It takes a human pilot decades to master the nuances of aerial combat learning, energy management, threat prioritization, and the psychological art of outthinking an opponent. The AI, however, had learned through massive data ingestion, having completed over 500,000 hours of simulated flight time in the digital realm before ever touching the physical controls. During this training, the AI did not just copy human tactics, it developed new ones. It identified non-typical combat patterns that human instructors had never taught, prioritizing targets and executing maneuvers with a level of reliability that eliminated human error. This brings us to a critical realization for Canada's defense strategy. The rcaf, like many Western air forces, faces a chronic retention challenge. We simply cannot train pilots fast enough to replace those who retire. The integration of an AI like Centaur into a fleet of Canadian-built Gripen Es offers a solution to this human resource crisis. It acts as a digital wingman that never sleeps, never panics, and possesses the accumulated wisdom of 500,000 flight hours. It does not replace the Canadian pilot, it makes them invincible. In a high-threat environment over the Arctic, where a pilot might be fatigued after a 6-hour patrol, the AI remains perfectly alert, scanning for threats and suggesting tactical solutions that a human brain might miss under pressure. Critically, the architecture of this system speaks directly to the Canadian values of safety and pragmatism. One of the greatest fears regarding AI and weaponry is the loss of control. However, Saab and Helsing have approached this with a safety-first methodology that aligns with Western ethical standards. The flight tests proved that the AI software could be installed without interfering with the aircraft's certified flight-critical systems. It operates in parallel, meaning that even if the AI were to encounter a glitch, the fundamental flight controls of the jet remain in the hands of the pilot. Furthermore, the system is remarkably efficient. Peter Nilsson, head of advanced programs at Saab Aeronautics, revealed a timeline that highlights the agility of the Gripen platform. The integration of Project Beyond began only in March 2025, and the first successful AI-driven flight took place within just 8 weeks. This speed of adaptation is the antithesis of the F-35 program, which often requires years of bureaucratic wrangling and billions of dollars to implement software upgrades. The Gripen E's smart architecture allows the AI to be integrated directly into the existing avionics without the need for a separate, dedicated processor. This means that as AI technology advances, the fleet can be updated instantly. Saab's goal is to rapidly deploy AI on existing fighters without forcing customers to wait for a completely new generation of aircraft. For Canada, this means that a Gripen E assembled in Montreal or Halifax today would not be obsolete in 10 years. Instead, it would evolve, receiving brain upgrades that keep it at the cutting edge of warfare for decades. When we weave these two narratives together, the industrial and the technological, the picture becomes clear. On one hand, we have the F-35, a platform that demands Canada fit into a rigid, American-led ecosystem with escalating costs and limited sovereign control over the technology. On the other hand, we have the Saab Gripen E proposal. This path offers Canada the chance to be the manufacturing home for a jet that is currently undergoing the most significant technological evolution in modern aviation history. It offers us the chance to build the GlobalEye on our own Bombardier jets, creating a surveillance network that sees everything. And it offers us a fighter jet that learns, adapts, and fights with the precision of AI. The skepticism regarding a mixed fleet or a shift away from a full F-35 commitment is understandable. Change is difficult, and the inertia of procurement processes is powerful. However, the definition of a modern Air Force is changing. It is no longer just about stealth. It is about information dominance and the speed of adaptation. The Gripen E, with its proven ability to integrate third-party AI like Centaur, represents the future of software-defined warfare. Is it realistic for Canada to manage this? The answer lies in our history. We are a nation that punched above its weight in 2 world wars, a nation that designed the Avro Arrow, and a nation that leads the world in flight simulation through CAE. We have the talent, the infrastructure, and the industrial base. What is required now is the political will to recognize that the safe choice of buying off the shelf is not necessarily the smart choice for our long-term sovereignty. As we look toward the horizon, the image of a Canadian-assembled Gripen E patrolling the Northwest Passage, guided by a pilot, supported by an AI with 50 years of combat experience, and coordinated by a Bombardier GlobalEye, represents a vision of strength that is uniquely ours. It is a vision where Canada does not just fly in formation, we lead the formation. The partnership between Saab and Canada is not just about selling planes, it is about building a legacy. With the demand from Ukraine rising and the technological barriers falling, the door is open. It is up to Canada to walk through it. Thank you for joining us for this strategic analysis. If you're proud of Canada's potential in aerospace and found value in this report, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more defense insights. We'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think establishing a Gripen assembly line here is the right boost for our economy and job market? Are you excited about the prospect of AI wingmen supporting our rcaf pilots in the future? Could a mixed fleet of F-35 seconds and Canadian-made Gripens be the perfect shield for our Arctic? Let's get the conversation started. Until next time, stay safe and take care, Canada.